It was at this point in the lesson that the young woman's president at the time stood up and said, I just need to tell you guys that you are not supposed to pray to your Heavenly Mother. And I go out to my car and I just start bawling because, one, I was humiliated. I already felt so uncomfortable in that setting, and to have me show up, to ask somebody to keep showing up to church who's like, hey, I'm on the fence, I don't really believe, but like I'm still showing up and I'm still putting in the time and I'm still trying to participate and be with you guys and find a place. And to just be shut down like that in the middle of a lesson. And then I thought about the message that those young women received that day, that they could not talk to their Heavenly Mother, that they could not have communication with their mother, their creator, because she needed to be protected from them. Welcome to the SoulScript podcast. Here we explore how to unlock the power of our story. Our journey here on earth can be one of deep passion, intentional creation, and personal transformation. The only thing holding us back is our stories. Come and join me as we rewrite and reignite. Welcome back to the SoulScript podcast. This is actually my first time back with you guys in over a year and a half. I'll go into why it's been so long since I have recorded a podcast episode. That's actually one thing we're going to talk about today. But first, I have to introduce my guest, Brian Parrish. He is a neighbor, he's a friend, and he also has his own podcast. And his podcast is called Parrish the Thought, which I'm going to let Brian go ahead and intro what his podcast is about.
My podcast is about humans. That's my niche. People ask me what I talk about, and I talk to humans about their stories. Years ago, there was a show on BYU TV called The Story Trek, and the reporter would go out on the street with his camera, knock on someone's door, or just walk up to him and say, tell me your story. And that was amazing to me. And the beauty of that show, I think the miracle of it was that when they were done interviewing that person, they would put a map of the town on the floor, drop a Sharpie marker on it, wherever it landed, that's where they'd go next. And that was the beauty of the miracle, I think, of just randomly going up to someone and saying, tell me your story. So I don't go up to strangers and say, tell me your story, but I'll see stories about people, even your story, and think, that's interesting. I want to hear about it. It's that simple. And there's no shortage of stories. Everyone has something. And typically people think they don't. They're like, who am I? Nobody wants to hear from me. I got nothing. My life's boring. But no, everybody has something that can at least entertain or uplift or educate on some level. So that's what I do.
Yeah, it's actually a really cool platform. And I feel like you had the opportunity to interview some really amazing humans who maybe are, quote unquote, critically acclaimed, but then you also have Joe Schmoes or somebody like me.
I prefer the Joe Schmoes or the Julie Schmoes. Famous people, it's just another interview to them. So I'm not really interested in like hoping to get some ultra famous person on because it's just another one to them. It's not really interesting, I wouldn't think. So
yeah,
just bring me the schmoes.
All right.
Bring on the schmoes.
Here you go. Here's a schmo right here.
We're schmoing it.
I'm schmoing it. We're schmoing it.
Schmoing it.
So,
and for those that don't know, Parrish is my last name, so that's tying into that old phrase from yesteryear of Parrish the Thought. So that's where that came from, and it just stuck, so I keep it.
Yeah, it's really, really cool. I love it. Well, I'm grateful that you're here today, and we've been trying to do this for a couple months, actually. I think it's been like 6 months where we even threw out this idea. Brian was the one, you were the one who encouraged me to tell this specific story that I'm going to tell today. And it was a story that is really hard to share for a number of reasons. And so I just felt like it was important that you were here while I shared this story, since you were the one who was like, this needs to be shared. So,
if nothing else, for you,
yeah, exactly.
for your healing.
Let's give a little bit of a background of me, since if you don't know, we are going to share this podcast on both platforms. So it's going to be found on Parrish the Thought, and it's also going to be found on SoulScript. So let's give a little background on me if you don't know who I am.
Tell us who you are.
Who I am. Well, that's really actually very hard to share who you are in one sentence, but I'll tell you information that is pertinent to today. How about that?
Fair enough.
Let's back it up quite a few years. I have been or was a member of the LDS Church for my entire life.
Some people call them Mormons.
The Mormons, exactly. And so grew up in Utah, raised like a Utah Mormon, and I was all in, like 100% in. And I know you have a little bit of a different background because you were a convert to the church.
Correct.
So it's a little bit of a different feel, and we have different stories, but we also understand what it's like to be in this church, right? And I would say I was an all-in Mormon, like 100%, loved it so much. I didn't even have questions about it. I didn't have issues with it. And I actually really wanted to understand more about it. And so I decided to research the temple. And so I was like, let's go, let's figure it out. Let's dive on in. Let's figure out all of these signs and symbols and whatever that are part of the temple. And as I was doing that, I found out some information that shattered my whole world and my whole perception of the LDS Church. And it was at that point moving forward that everything just started to crumble. So unlike, I think, a lot of people who have faith crisis or whatever, where they kind of have this slowly come up and they're like, I have questions, this doesn't feel right, whatever. It was earth shattering for me to even think oh, maybe I don't actually know what's going on here.
Sort of a reverse Sacred Grove moment, maybe, for lack of a better way to explain it.
Yes. Yeah, I had a reverse Sacred Grove moment. Yeah. And in that moment, right then and there, I took my garments off immediately and I never put them on again. Now, talking to a Mormon about this, they would be like, well, that's why. Because you took your garments off, right? Because if you take your garments off, then you let all the evil come in, and then you're not protected, and there's it's a lot.
Evil can come into your life no matter what you're wearing.
Yeah,
doesn't matter, and so can goodness.
Yes. So have I told you this story before? No. Have I told you any of this information before?
Nope, I didn't know you had this reverse Sacred Grove moment.
Oh, okay. So, I thought you knew.
Do you want to go into the detail of what you thought before and then what you thought afterwards? And what was it about that experience, that one time, what was different that time?
Well, so I was under the impression that everything within the temple was original, and just that Joseph Smith was enlightened in that moment with all of this original information, original, what would you call it? Signs and symbols and tokens and ritual, right? And I realized that actually he was stealing from other religions or groups, that then I'm freaking out, right? In this moment, I'm freaking out. And I'm my thumbs are probably going 100 miles an hour in Google trying to wait, whoa, right? Where was he even part of? Okay, so Masonic religions.
Yes. Did it shake your faith in him as a prophet? Or did you all of a sudden think, I don't like these rituals because they're not original?
It shook it because he lost his validity as a prophet.
Okay.
Yeah. Exactly. And I was just oh, these things are so sacred, so individual, so spiritual, so, and then I was wait, other people are doing these things, the Masonic religions, right? Which is I found out was kind of a boys' club, and that made me really uncomfortable. And then I was like, wait, was Joseph Smith like a Freemason? And then I'm like Googling, and yeah, before he had received revelation about the temple, he had joined Freemasonry. And so I was like, oh my gosh. And so my whole perspective just shattered in that moment. And I was, so the things that you wear on your garments, right? You wear symbols on your garments. And those symbols were symbols that were from the Freemasons. And so I didn't feel comfortable wearing them anymore. And that's why I took them off. Now,
because you wanted your own, not borrowed stuff.
Yeah. And now, like, we could go down a big road of like, well, where did the Freemasons get their stuff? Like, the Freemasons weren't the first ones to have these signs and symbols. Some of these signs and symbols have been around for ancient times, and the Freemasons have been using them. So you can go down that whole pathway, right? Of, I understand that sometimes I even have thought about like with sometimes that God takes things that we already know and he builds upon them, kind of thing. And maybe it's something like that. He's like, I'm going to take what you know and I'm going to build upon that. Or something comes into your life that's really good and he's like, see, this came into your life because it's something that I want you to be aware of or know about. So there's a lot of different ways that we can look at this. I don't think walking down this pathway of conversation is really helpful in this moment. So let's see. From there, I started questioning everything at that point.
About church or just life or in general? Or
about church.
Okay.
About church. And this totally caught my family off guard. Like, I mean, I was the one who was 100% in, you know, and who would like leave parties if they got too, like if they were
too
playing,
R-rated,
yes,
or too PG-13.
I definitely never swore, like nothing. Like I would walk out of movies and stuff like that, right? So that was a me before, and I walked down this pathway of 3 years of totally taking everything you thought you knew to be true and looking at each individual thing and deciding if I thought it was true or not any longer. Mm-hmm.
So it's not like you were out seeking quote unquote anti anything.
No.
You were in where you were told to be.
Yeah.
To find all these amazing answers.
Mm-hmm.
So that's interesting.
Yeah, exactly. I was not searching for it at all. I've talked about this whole story on another podcast episode of mine, but for your listeners, they don't know any of this. But I mean, I remember it's so hard to step away from your religion, because especially when it's a religion that built the foundation of who you are. Right?
It's your whole existence and identity.
Yeah, it's like asking
you don't just
you to
walk
tear
away from
apart.
that like you're tossing out a, old nasty old bucket of chili that's gone bad in your fridge or something. That's a weird example that I just came up with.
Yes, that was a weird example, but let's go for it.
That's where my brain went.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a big deal.
It's a huge deal. And people who question their, childhood religion, I think we should give them credit for what they're going through, because a lot of people often think it's easy to walk away, or they walk away because they want things to be easier. That's, I think, would you say that that's true?
Yes.
Sometimes a misconception where it's like, oh, well, they didn't want to do the hard thing. Right. And I was like,
I used to think that. I used to think that about people.
Yeah.
I was judgy.
Yes.
Yeah, I was.
The worst part about, I went through a whole stage of feeling horrible, because then I was on the other side and I realized all of the stuff that I thought about other people. And it was just in my face how, oh my gosh, all of the things that I had said, that I had done, that I had whatever, was just so in my face, realizing how wrong I was.
And not done with ill intent.
No.
You meant well and you loved and you were scared for people.
Yes.
Right? Correct me if I'm wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And so you said the things that you were programmed or to say or heard other people say. And, I have two of my kids who walked away, and we did not handle that well as parents at all, and said I call it the canned Mormon things to say to people when they're leaving, because they're scared. I used to get mad at people, but I'm like, people say that because they're scared. Their whole doctrine is being shaken up, and they're afraid. It's not like they're trying. No one's trying to piss off their kids if they leave. No one wants to alienate their kids or their friends. Nobody wants that. I don't think.
No, you're doing you're trying to do the opposite, right?
You're
trying to quote unquote save
keep them in the fold, keep them in the tribe.
Yeah.
Because you're afraid.
Yeah. And so then everything that I had ever done, I looked at and I was like, wow. And I saw it with clarity, but it's something that I feel like is really hard to see unless you walk on the other side of the fence, right?
Well,
and
like
I wouldn't say I'm on a side of a fence, but
it's like fish, Hey, how's the water today? Another fish. I was like, what are you talking about? What's water?
Yeah.
And it's a great analogy for when you're in something so deep, you don't even notice.
Yeah.
That's what everybody does and do. And that's what you eat, drink, and breathe.
Yeah. Yeah. So like I went through this whole process of facing my shadow side, which is realizing, oh, you did all this. Like this has been your identity for a long time. And then I remember it being so hard, and I just wanted to backpedal, and I wanted to go back to not knowing what I knew. And I just was on my knees, Sacred Grove moment, in my bedroom, pleading to God, just like, please, I just need a straight answer from you right now. If you tell me to put my garments on, I'll put them on, and I will go to church, and I will keep doing the things that you want me to do, or that quote unquote I'm supposed to be doing. I promise, even though I don't understand and it makes me feel sick and I feel uncomfortable, if you tell me right now that that's what you want me to do, I will absolutely, happily do it. And I received one word: no. And so from that point forward...
Well, you just didn't pray hard enough.
Yeah, I got the wrong answer, right? I got the wrong answer. Like when I talk to somebody who's still very ingrained in the church and doesn't have a lot of nuance, right? If I tell them that story, like every part of their being clenches up, because you can't imagine that being an answer from God. God would never tell you to do that. Or the other thing that I've received is, well, some people just need to leave for a time. And so I trust that God let them away for a time because they need to learn those answers, kind of thing, right? That's how we think about it in our minds sometimes. And so I just my whole life just fell apart.
And how long ago was this?
So the timeline is hard. I think it's like 3-4 years ago, something like that. And then we were living in Lehigh at the time, and then we moved here where I live now, which I'm your next door neighbor. And so I moved into your neighborhood or ward. Our family went to church. That's how I know you, because my husband was still in the church and wanted to raise the kids up in the church. And I was just like lost. So I'm like, yeah, sure, I guess. Like, I'll go to church with you guys. And I remember the first day I walked in, I kind of like sent a message.
We putting on an air of...
I wore a sleeveless dress.
No, you did not.
Yeah. Yeah.
You are such a rebel.
I know, it's
shaking
crazy.
Up the entire structure.
And I remember I wanted people to like know where I was at without having to say it, And for me, it felt good to be able to come into a place where I could almost have like a clean slate as to where I was right then at that time. Like, hey, I come to church. I believe in God. I love Christ, and but I don't believe in everything, but I'm still showing up because I'm a spiritual human being, and this is where my family is, kind of thing. And so that's how I showed up at our neighborhood, our ward. And it wasn't long until I got a calling, and that calling was in Young Women's with your wife. which is really how I know you, is through Rachel.
Right.
And she's in the Young Women's Presidency, and I was a Young Women's Advisor, and I immediately like clung to Rachel because she is an amazing human being.
She's kind of a big deal.
She is a big
For
deal.
those that are, she's a big deal.
She's a big deal. She has such a loving heart, and she's also British. So I was immediately like,
She could tell you
yes.
to piss off, and you'd be like, "Tell me that again, please."
Yes. She was so wonderful, and she befriended me. And she was like, I'm going to like get emotional about it. She was genuine.
What a concept to be genuine. And she's also a convert
Yeah.
at 13, 14 years old.
Yeah.
So she's grown up outside of the club
Yeah.
for a little bit of her life.
And both of you guys are, you know, and you guys, both you and Rachel were so important to me in this time period to know that there were people who did love,
Just love you for where you're at.
love, right?
Like, I think we're supposed to do that.
Yeah.
Last I looked into the gospel, that's what it's about.
Yeah. It's crazy. It's the craziest concept.
So simple, honestly. And we have a gift for complicating it
Yeah.
as a culture.
Yes, we do. But she loved me, and I loved hanging out with her. So it was like I showed up for my calling essentially to hang out with Rachel.
Assigned friendship.
Yes, but it
There's
totally
there's some
worked.
bonuses to that to that program.
There is, and so we would talk about stuff, and it felt so good to talk about my inner turmoil to somebody who was in the church still, but like still totally held nuance and loved me where I was, and that was really special. And so we were in Young Women's together for, I want to say like 9 months or something. I want to say it's maybe the timeline. Now it was really interesting because I was never given any, when the bishop extended a calling, I did tell him exactly where I was at. I was like, hey, this is where I'm at. I don't wear my garments. I don't believe in most of the stuff, but I can tell the girls that God loves them. And I think that Jesus Christ is a loving human, and I can tell them that he loves them, and that's where I can show up in this calling. So if you're okay with that, like, I'll show up. And he was actually okay with that. And they still offered me the calling, which I think is great. But I was definitely never offered any teaching opportunities or like, let's get up in front of the girls. It was very much like, here you can have like a supportive role in making activities happen kind of thing, which is very typical for an advisor role. But also I would watch like advisors and different people have the opportunity to teach. And I was never given that opportunity until one day I was. And they invited Denali and I, so my daughter and I, the opportunity to teach a lesson in Young Women's. But Denali was not there. And so I just had to teach it myself. And so this was a little intimidating to me because I didn't know. I was nervous about what they were going to give me to teach. And I remember sitting down and opening up the lesson and being like, oh my gosh, what am I going to teach? And am I going to actually be able to teach what the lesson is, or am I going to have to teach something else,
Because you may or may not buy it.
Yes.
Or be able to support it.
Yes, exactly. And I'm not going to teach something I don't support. Yeah. I'm going to be very genuine in my teaching. And so I opened it up, and luckily it was a Book of Mormon lesson, but it was about prayer. And I can't even tell you which chapters or anything like that, but it
Doesn't matter.
It was about prayer and praying to God, and actually praying to God for more than just your needs, but also your desires. And I was like, hell yeah, I can teach this lesson, because this is something that I want to just like shake everybody and tell them about, is that like, oh, your relationship with God is so much more than just like, hey, I need this, give me that. It's like, let's co-create together. And I'm like, yes, I can teach this lesson. And so I got there and I started teaching a lesson about prayer. And I was like, your heavenly parents want to hear from you. They love you and they care for more than just your needs. They want to help you with your desires. And we talked about different kinds of prayer that there can be, where it doesn't always just have to look like kneeling by the bed, and folding your arms, but like you can pray while you're walking on a hike. You could pray in meditation. Meditation is like the receiving side of prayer oftentimes, right? We do all the jabbering, but then in Mormon or LDS culture, we're not taught to like sit and receive. And I do remember I was wanting them to do this activity in real time, which might have been a little bit of a push for this age group or just for somebody in general, where I love this practice of prayer that I do where it's like, dear heavenly parents, and I write and journal out my prayer because it's very powerful. Because, how many times do you pray and you're just like, wait, whoa, what was I saying? Right? You
have squirrel moments.
Yeah. But you can't really have as many squirrel moments when you're writing. It's very intentional. So you write out a prayer to them and then you put your pen to the paper and you say, Dear Laura, and you intuitively receive their answer back to you right then and there in that moment, which makes people in the LDS church feel really uncomfortable because you're like, well, that's not how it works. God doesn't just talk to you right then and there. You can't just receive an answer right then and there. Like, how does that make you feel?
I don't like it.
Why?
It's because it's like, well, you're sort of being controlled when we know we have personal revelation, but someone's telling you it doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
Well, maybe not for you.
So I could feel a little bit of tension in this room, by the way, of like this idea of like, I can sit here and you can receive revelation or you can receive answers from God right then and there using your intuition. And I talked about kind of what that feels like to receive that answer from God, but the thing is I kept using the phrasing heavenly parents. I was like, your heavenly father and your heavenly mother love you. Your heavenly parents want to hear from you. When we can pray to our heavenly parents, right? And so I'm like, okay, this is going okay. I can tell that some people feel a little uncomfortable with this idea of this specific type of
If I really get the squirmies?
Yeah.
The adults and the kids, or just the adults?
Looking back, I can see that some of the adults were getting squirmies for other reasons, because it was at this point in the lesson that the young woman's president at the time stood up and said, and, my memory might be fuzzy, but like in my mind, it was record scratch. I'm like in the middle of saying something and she's like, I just need to tell you guys that you are not supposed to pray to your heavenly mother. And I was like, if you're listening, you can't see my face right now, like dumbstruck, like, oh, we're doing this. Okay. So I'm just like, that's fine, Laura. We're just going to deep breaths. We're going to calm ourselves. Let's listen to what she has to say. So she continues on and she starts talking about how she actually quoted, I think, a couple like old prophets talking about not praying to Heavenly Mother. And then she was like, and one reason why I personally feel we're not to pray to our Heavenly Mother is because our Heavenly Father is protecting her from the disgrace of men. Men as in like humankind, right? Not just
protecting
men.
her from her own children.
Yeah.
Which doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Yes.
She can take care of herself.
Exactly. And, in this moment, it's one of those where you're like, I'm so like dumbstruck that this is even happening right now that I can't even think of anything to say because my brain is going.
In shock.
Yes, I was in shock. Complete shock. But she goes on to tell these young women that their Heavenly Mother needed protection from their from them.
From their piddly little wants and needs.
From them. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a weird concept.
Yeah. And, I just like, I don't even know. I don't even know. It's like trauma response. Like everything goes fuzzy in this moment, like waving in and out because you're like, number one, this was the first lesson I had taught in like 4 years. And somebody stood up in the middle of the lesson and said, hey, what she's teaching is wrong, in quite an abrasive way. And also what she was teaching made me so upset. What she said about what I was teaching made me so upset. And then the other thing is that there were other leaders in the room who did nothing, said nothing. And there was a member of the bishopric in the room who said nothing and did nothing. And I was like, afterwards, she came up to me and she said, she gives me a hug and she's like, I hope that what I said didn't hurt you or something like that, right? And I was just trying to be agreeable in the moment. And I'm like, I understand that you did what you thought was right. And that's what I said. And I left it at that.
That's fair.
Because she did, right? And we can go back to, and I think we should go into this just a little bit in a minute where we talk about motivation behind saying something like that and so on and so forth, because there was more to the story that I didn't have at the time. But in that moment, I'm in shock. And I go out to my car and I just start bawling because, one, I was humiliated. I already felt so uncomfortable in that setting, and to have me show up, to ask somebody to keep showing up to church who's like, hey, I'm on the fence. I don't really believe, but like I'm still showing up and I'm still putting in the time and I'm still trying to participate and be with you guys and find a place. And to just be shut down like that in the middle of a lesson, I was humiliated.
And it's because you were doing something that was so valuable to you. And you're like, oh my gosh, this is great. I can communicate with these girls and this is amazing. And you're like, wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, that hurts. Big time.
And then I thought about the message that those young women received that day, that they could not talk to their heavenly mother, that they could not have communication with their mother, their creator, because she needed to be protected from them. That there was something wrong with them.
Which doesn't make any sense at all. It's because it's such a new concept in the culture. Because I know on my patriarchal blessing 30 years ago, it talks about heavenly parents. It doesn't specifically call out a heavenly mother, but it makes, if we're supposed to model ourselves after deity.
But the girls don't have anybody to model themselves after.
No, I know. That's a whole nother patriarchal story we could talk about.
It's like, it was so heartbreaking to me. But let's go back to the me being on the other side of the fence, seeing stuff that I had said previously to other people because I was scared or I was trying to do the right thing. And I know that this young woman leader was trying to do what she thought was right. I know she was. And I know that she had love in her heart. She did not do it appropriately. Why not, like, you know what? Let's let this lesson continue and let's have another lesson talking about Heavenly Mother and the proper way to interact with them, if that's what you believe, right? Like, if you believe that you shouldn't interact with Heavenly Mother, let's have another lesson about that, rather than standing up in the middle of somebody else's lesson, cutting them off what felt like mid-sentence to say this, right? Like, not an appropriate way to handle the situation at all. What I found out later, and I don't even know if you know this. Do you know this?
I don't know. Start talking and I'll let you know if I know it or not.
So what I found out later is that the girls' camp had been like the week before. And at girls' camp, there was a girl who doesn't really show up to church very much or something. I don't know. And I'm learning this secondhand or whatever. So I cannot validate all of these facts. I wasn't there. But there was a girl who stood up during testimony meeting, and she said that she prayed to her Heavenly Mother because she has a hard time praying to her Heavenly Father. And I don't know if it's like trauma stuff or just like has a hard time connecting with men or just what it is, but she prayed to her Heavenly Mother and that she felt her Heavenly Mother's love. And she was so excited, like just pairing her testimony about this love that she felt from her Heavenly Mother. And so that testimony was born in girls' camp, like a week or two before. And the bishopric had sent out an email to all of the leaders, youth leaders, saying that it was from after this experience at Young Women's camp that they needed to make sure that the women didn't pray to their Heavenly Mother. And so then here I am, the very first one, confronting them with this opportunity to correct something, right? That they were told that they needed to correct. And I think that was probably an overreaction from the young women president because she had just been told, hey, we need to make sure that the young women aren't praying to their Heavenly Mother. So it gave me a little more context for her reaction as to why she was motivated to do that. But did it make me any happier? No, because I was like, wait, there's this young woman who has a really hard time connecting with God and just wanted to connect to something spiritual and wanted to connect to her spiritual side. And she prayed to her Heavenly Mother and she felt love.
And she may not have even known about this letter to the leaders.
Yeah.
Was that same girl in your class that day?
I don't know. Because I don't know who it was.
Okay.
Yeah. But I'm also like, that's sick, honestly, to me, to be like, oh, this girl, she doesn't go to church very much and she finally connected to
something.
And you're going to be like, that was wrong. What you did was wrong. When you prayed to your Heavenly Mother and you felt love, that was wrong. And I never went back to church after that experience. Not because of that, but it was like the final straw.
It's just another tipping point, or the tipping point. People don't just bail because of one thing.
Right.
It's a process. And when I say bail, that's maybe the wrong term as well.
Mm-hmm. Thoughtfully step away.
Like, this does not work this does not serve me anymore. I'm not wanted here anymore. So why waste my time?
Well, and I was like, I have no voice here. I have no voice. I'm not learning anything. I come here and half the time just like am in like so stressed out that like I'm not open to learning anything and I have nothing to contribute. And so I was like,
so far
this
as
is not my place.
You feel like you have nothing to contribute, but in reality you actually do, but you feel like it's not going to be accepted by this particular club at this time. Yeah.
That was what was communicated to me personally at that time, is that I had nothing that I could contribute to this group. And I thought, when I first accepted the calling, I was like, you know what? Like, I'm a freaking spiritual person. Like, my whole world is spirituality, right? And I dissect this stuff and I love it so much. And I was like, I can probably teach these girls something, right? Like, I probably have something here. But in that moment, I was like, oh, I have no voice. If I talk, I'm going to get shut down publicly and be humiliated. And I can't even let's talk about heavenly parents. I actually never said, pray to your Heavenly Mother. I said, your heavenly parents, because I was a little nervous about them being Heavenly Mother being included in there, right? So I was actually very careful not to say, pray to your Heavenly Mother.
Sometimes the club has a way of like inadvertently pushing out the people that are going to help it get better.
Yeah.
I'm learning a lot it's not an uncommon thing out of fear or whatever, but some good people trying to help it get better, get nudged out, pushed out, asked to do, you're not doing it the right way, so you have no value here. That's a whole nother maybe topic as well.
Well, I mean, there are about a bajillion things we could talk about.
Yes, a bajillion.
A bajillion.
That's, not room for a bajillion today.
But, when you were talking about, and we have had this discussion off air, we were talking about patriarchal blessings. And you were saying, you had just said that yours talked about heavenly parents. But I had told you that mine talks about my heavenly mother very specifically, and in like a very loving, relationally way. Like, your heavenly mother loves you. She misses you every day. Like, and then on top of that, at the very end, it talks about how I will be able to receive the information and knowledge to become a heavenly mother. And so for me, like, at least since the age of 12, when I got my blessing, I'm like, yeah.
This is normal.
This is totally normal.
Does not everyone else have this? Are
Yeah.
we not all in this family together?
Yeah, exactly. And so for me, it's like, wait, mind-boggling that we're not going to talk about Heavenly Mother. And I remember there being conversations with other women where they felt a wound for us not talking about Heavenly Mother very often. And just like, how many times, there's people who have like gone through and counted the number of times Heavenly Mother has been mentioned by priesthood authority. This is a big thing for other women. And for me, I was always like, what do you mean? Like, of course, Heavenly Mother, like, I don't understand what the big deal is. And now after this experience, I'm like, oh my gosh, we really don't talk about Heavenly Mother, do we? No, we get shut down talking about Heavenly Mother.
It doesn't make any sense to me. And before, a few years ago, I didn't even care. I'm like, I don't care, whatever. That's so ethereal, spiritual. It's beyond my comprehension, so I don't even think about it. But I get it now.
Well, we have all of these, and this is something I thought about, and it could be a not high thought, where we have women, and I would say like the core wound of a woman is that they do invisible work. So they're typically running the household, right? We're talking like classic role of a woman is running the household and doing so many things that are invisible and not rewarded by society. And then I think it's really interesting that in at least the LDS church, we have a Heavenly Mother who's reflected the same way, where she's like, I'm sorry, this is our freaking co-creator of the earth and of us. And she gets zero credit. She is invisible. And so for me, I thought that was really interesting. I don't know quite what to think about it yet. Like if it's really purposeful, as in like, we're talking like meant to be kind of thing, where it's like we have a Heavenly Mother who is reflected by us, in us. Does that make sense?
And then also simultaneously silenced by her own children.
And then silenced by her own children.
By the bros, by her sons. Silenced by her sons.
Well, and I was thinking,
Really?
I'm like, yeah, but isn't that like the wound of a woman on this earth?
Yeah, I believe so. And yeah, now that I'm aware of stuff like that.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. Aware of this.
No, I get it. Like, because, it's funny because Andrew, my husband, our roles have kind of swapped now after he was let go during mass layoff about 6 months ago. And he has become, he's fallen into the more like homemaker, caretaker.
The house husband. I'm a house husband right now.
The house husband.
Yeah,
Yes.
my wife loves it.
Yes.
And I do too. Because she's doing something that's, more solid and stable, and I'm less stable. So I do all the things that she typically would handle. We just help each other. It's called a partnership.
How has that been for you at all? If you have noticed anything where you're like, I spent all day doing the laundry. I ran and did grocery shopping and meal planning, and then I unloaded all of those dishes, and I so on and so forth. Have you ever felt like a little bit like unseen for those things?
No, because I know that she knows how much work that is, and she absolutely appreciates.
Yeah.
Because she's the one that has a set schedule where she goes out to work, whereas mine is less set. It's a little more sporadic.
Yeah.
And she loves it. She comes home and she gets to crawl into bed and all the things are done.
Yes.
And granted, it's different now. We don't have any kids at home, so it's easier. I'm basically cleaning up after me and a little bit of her. So it's easier for me. Had this happened 5-6 years ago, it might have been a different story. It'd have been harder for me. I like it. It takes and all I want to do is take the pressure off of her.
Yeah.
Because I don't feel like I'm living up to what I should be doing.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I'll do whatever I can to minimize her pain.
Yeah.
And her workload.
Yeah.
So no, I don't have a problem with it at all.
Well, for Andrew, it actually has been so wonderful for me because he has experienced like, I did so much today and I have like nothing to prove for it. And I was like, dude, that's been my entire existence.
Welcome to being a woman.
Yes.
In this culture, in the world, in the church.
Yeah. And so it's been really interesting for me and him to swap those roles and to feel that more feminine wound of doing a lot and having nothing to show for it and no credit.
Before he may have understood it intellectually, but now he feels it.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, because nobody's thanking you. The world isn't thanking you. No, you're not getting praised. Being a top producer.
Yes.
Well, only the top producers get recognized, not the ones who are busting their butt but aren't really making it. No praise.
Yeah.
But the top producers, always out there. Okay, you haven't been back. You don't feel like you're seen or heard, and you have no voice anymore. Now what? So how has it been since then? How long has it been since you left and didn't come back to now?
It has been 1.5 years. And
that's crazy.
Since I stepped completely away.
I remember when you left because I was pissed because I didn't approve it. Not that I needed to, but I'm like, you can't. Rachel likes you. Rachel, my wife, digs you and says it just yesterday that she would love to hang out with you more. She can't do it right now.
Yeah.
Because of her schedule.
Yeah.
But yeah, she connected, and it's genuine connection, which you don't have a lot of. We don't have a lot of friends.
Well, and I think also knowing a little bit about you, and you can decide how much you want to share, where sometimes I think that you're in a boat where you appreciate a more nuanced view of the church, where you're like, you're not letter of the law kind of thing. And so sometimes when somebody leaves, you're like, dang it, I lost somebody who got what I get. And that can be really hard.
And I could see the value they were bringing or could bring to the young women, to let the young women and young men see that if they're not doing all the things, checking off all the boxes, they're still wonderful and amazing and valuable and are just fine.
And you're still wanted.
And you're still wanted and needed.
And you can still use your voice.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to show the young women like, hey, you can show up immodest, not wearing garments as an adult and still hold a calling within the church, and you're still appreciated and loved and wanted
worthy,
and needed and worthy and yes
of everything.
Yeah. I wanted to be able to hold space for those who weren't 100%.
Because there's some kids, they're not all on. I mean, sometimes I look at the young men, and I didn't grow up in the church. Maybe I would have just had this glazed over look in my eyes if I was in class in church every Sunday as a teenager. I might have just been like, oh. It's like you look at them and like they would rather be anywhere else but here.
Yeah.
And maybe they're not feeling that. That's just my interpretation of what I'm seeing.
Yeah.
But sometimes I see a couple of them they'll ask, they're not shy sometimes about asking questions. And I'm like, well, that doesn't make sense. Or is that literal? and I want to say, tell me more about that. But they
Let's
just
keep
get,
going
they kind of just get overlooked. And I don't know if it's intentional.
I think it's because we're scared to have conversations like that.
That are outside the prescribed narrative.
Yeah.
Or the lesson. Because in terms of lessons, I don't like to teach because a lot of it just doesn't. Generally, it's. I've never really been into scriptures and scriptorian, and it's so high level to me. I'm like, how about we just love people and keep it simple, and that's right. And maybe that's my lizard brain. It's just simple, like Christ, love your neighbor. Gospel ends there.
Yeah.
Ends and begins there.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Yep.
But all these lessons about this and these high level things and meat before milk or milk before meat, and I don't know.
Yeah.
It's always been hard for me. I've done it. I've just stayed in and done it and done the things and attended, and we have there's I'm sure there's a lot more people thinking of complicated things that we just don't talk about, and we should. That should be the place where the hospital for the sick,
yes.
as we say,
Yes.
and be able to well, tell me about that. And I know there was a time when I was in elders quorum and they were talking about loving your kids when they're in the church and loving them when they come back. And I said, well, how about we just love them, period? Whether they come back or scattered through the wind or in our, wherever, whatever, how about we just love them? And I shared the story about my oldest daughter who left the church and is gay, and I have a great relationship with her. Why wouldn't I? But it's just, this kind of the binary narrative that gets talked about a lot. But
well, it's really hard because the doctrine is that the whole family has to be doing XYZ in order to make it to the celestial kingdom. And so what it really is somebody leaving the church, leaving the fold, especially if it's somebody within your family, it's threatening your heaven. Because of course you want to be with your family. Of course, you're like, heaven wouldn't be heaven without my kids there. And so then all of a sudden you get freaked out that they're leaving because that means that you don't get to be with them in heaven. And that is no heaven to anybody. And so we act out of fear. And so it's really, really hard because at the core root of the gospel, the teachings of the celestial kingdom and telestial, right? That right there tears families apart because it makes people act out of fear that I won't be with my people for forever. And they can't be with me if they're not going to the temple and if they're not an active member and if they're not doing XYZ. And so that is just the root of why people they still love their kids, but it's all, and they still love people who leave, but it's all very much motivated by trying to save them. When if we tear away that idea of, I'm not going to be with you if you don't do XYZ, then all of a sudden you are able to just love them no matter what. And so it is hard for me because I'm like, how do I don't know. It's hard because it's at the root of the gospel and the way that it's taught.
Oh, Christ didn't ask us to save people.
Yeah. The Catholic Church did. The Catholic Church told people that Christianity was, one, believing in Christ, and two, getting other people to believe in Christ, right? So that's where that idea in Christianity comes along, is that you have to save others. But Christ himself was just he said the kingdom of God is within you, which I don't think all of us completely understand. I mean, I don't even understand it fully, right? But, and then he told us to love people, but he didn't tell us to save, because if we're talking about Christianity, he's the savior, right?
And if we're saving somebody, that takes away their agency, does it not?
Yeah. which is
I saved you.
Whose plan?
Satan's.
And we're coming at this from a perspective of just like more typical Mormon gospel doctrine, Christianity kind of thing. But like, it's been so powerful for me to just say goodbye to the church. And I'll tell you why, is because now I have an open mind. I'm no longer like clinging on to something that skews my perspective. And now I can just look at something pretty objectively and be like, oh, I get it. Like, let's talk about the idea of the celestial, telestial, terrestrial kingdoms, right? So we often think, and in a Sunday school lesson, it's taught like, here's the circle, and then here's the other circle, and here's the other circle, right? Like if we're drawing it on the board,
hierarchy
and they're
of
one on top of each other and whatever. Okay. Now I have had it taught in a way where it's like higher light and knowledge. There's more light here. There's more light in the celestial kingdom. There's less light, and then like the lesser light, right? But like, what the does that even mean, right? And like, the way that it's taught in the LDS church just makes no sense. But then if I go to it from a different perspective and I learn about other ways of like higher consciousness or higher understanding, then I'm like, oh no, this actually makes total sense. Because let's say you're somebody who has more quote unquote light and knowledge, has a higher consciousness, can understand the world in a different way, receive more things, can, I don't know, like, okay, well, let me really go back here. So have you ever heard of the telepathy tapes?
No.
Okay, guys, you got to go and watch the telepathy or listen to the telepathy tapes. It is a podcast about non-speaking, non-verbal, autistic kids who can spell. So they can communicate with people. They've learned to communicate with people, but they're nonverbal. And so for a long time, we've thought, oh, these kids are just stupid. They have no idea what's going on. Like they're not really here kind of thing, until we started teaching them how to spell. And so now they can suddenly communicate with people. And so you have these phenomenons where they're telling their caretakers that they can read their minds, and like, it's fascinating. So a lot of nonverbal autistic kids can speak telepathically to their caretakers, and their caretakers can sometimes speak telepathically back to them. And then it goes on. It's crazy fascinating. But the journey goes on to talk about how these kids like can all meet at a place called the Hill. And it's insane because it's like one kid will talk to their caretaker, parent, whatever, about going to the Hill. And somebody else will talk about, somebody else's kid will talk about it. And they've never talked to each other. So it's this very common phenomenon or thing that these non-speaking kids are talking about, where it's just this place in their mind and they all meet up together. And there's even this super cool story about a kid in another state being best friends with a kid here in Utah, and their parents learning about this and having them meet in real life. And when they met like in person, they like didn't really talk to each other because they were talking to each other telepathically. And there's this girl in there who talks, one of the non-speaking kids, she, types stuff out and has a voice. And she's like, you guys are the ones who are idiots. Like, you guys have no idea what's going on. We are operating on a completely different plane than you are. Like, it's aggravating to have to try and use words to speak, because we speak instantaneously to each other and we interact with spirits and stuff. It's crazy. And so as I was listening to this, I was like, oh my gosh, like they're operating on a different plane than we are. They're living in a different world than we are, because they have this ability to be able to speak telepathically or see things or like be in this spiritual plane. So of course I can't be with them because I don't have that ability. And then all of a sudden I started thinking about like, oh my gosh, like what if like celestial beings? A celestial being is somebody who can operate on a completely different level where they're speaking telepathically. They're traveling by light. Like, you know what I mean? We're getting crazy here, but like a celestial being is somebody who operates on a different plane of intellect and spirituality or whatever. And a celestial being could be in the same room as a telestial being, but they won't be in the same place. Then they can't be in that same place unless that other person decides to gain higher, quote unquote, light and knowledge. And so when you think about it that way, you're like, oh, this actually makes sense. It's not like when we die, I'm going to heaven and the Heavenly Father has this checklist of all the things that we did or didn't do and all the things that were, did we get our gospel covenants, blah, 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 blah. And so, yes, you can go here to the celestial kingdom, which is, a place. We think of it as a place. Or no, you cannot. And so your families are separated by different planets. That's often what we think about when we talk about it in the church and when it's taught. No, it's more like, are you operating on a celestial plane? And are they operating on that celestial plane with you? So can you be in the same place together?
That's very heavy. But it makes sense.
Did I just blow your mind? No. Are you freaking out right now?
No, I don't freak out.
Okay.
I have no soul. I don't freak out.
Whatever, you have a very deep soul.
But yeah, it makes sense.
Doesn't that make sense? And so then, but the way that it's taught is so weird within the church, and it makes us freak out where we're like, oh no, they're not doing X, Y, Z. But here, in my personal opinion, like if we're talking about higher levels of consciousness, which is taught in so many different religions outside of like Catholicism and Christianity, right? We have lots of different religions that talk about higher levels of consciousness. And when it's really like about having levels of consciousness, a way that I could do it is by making temple covenants with God and by following a set of rules. And that may or may not lead me to a state of being, like my internal being, that could be celestial. Or there could be another way where I can have practices or understanding and have a state of being that is still a celestial being. And so for me, all of a sudden, like, religions fall away, do's or don'ts, rights, wrongs kind of fall away. And it's all, does this lift me up to a higher state of knowledge and a state of being? And I wouldn't even say lift you up. It's just a different state of being. Just a different
location.
So then I'm like kind of freaking out because you're like, what if there's celestial people with us right here, right now? And then that makes your brain explode because then you're like, it's not a place and it's not a destination. It's not when I die, this happens. It's right now. And that is empowering because when you think about, like I always say, the most powerful thing anybody could ever do for themselves is take 110% responsibility for themselves and their actions. And one thing that religion does, sadly, is it actually puts them in a victim.
Puts that on someone else.
Yeah. Very, very frequently. And even like puts it on God or puts it on Christ to save them. And so suddenly they're in this victim state where God did this to me, whatever, blah, 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 blah. These prayers weren't answered, da, 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 da. When it's like, no, you take 100% responsibility for yourself, your actions, and where you're at. And there's no church that's going to save you. It's you. And I know this is hard, and Christ and the Christ being our savior is something that I've thought about a lot. And it's still just, Christ is a question mark in my mind, right? But if we can realize that we have the ability right now to be like a celestial being right now, then all of a sudden, well, for some people, they might freak out, but for other people, it might really empower them to be like, right now, it's not about going to the temple and how many times or for some people it might be. For some people, it might be about going to the temple and they really feel like they gain that knowledge there. For other people, maybe it's not. And so the religions fall away, the rituals fall away, and it's just people learning about who they are and taking accountability and ownership of who they are, which in my opinion, they are divine.
Which is what we're always talking about getting to anyway. So take away a step and we're already there.
Yeah. Well, we think we have to die to get there. But it's like, no, like right now, what are you doing right now? I have heard this with autistic kids where they're just like pure souls. And I really think that they are very pure souls and that they have this, they live in a different world than we do. And that
they're stuck here.
Yes.
Kind of.
Yeah. Their bodies don't function, but their spirits are miles ahead of ours, you know?
All right, you guys. So this is actually where we end episode 1. And that's because Brian had to leave abruptly because we had been talking so long and didn't realize it. And so we couldn't conclude our conversation. So in episode 2, we conclude our conversation. I talk about kind of what's happened to me and where I am since leaving the church, how it's affected my family, my kids, my husband. And then I love it because we get to talk to Brian about church for him. And he talks about lobby church, and he gives us a really tangible way to love others. Now, I know that sounds kind of weird because, I mean, shouldn't it be simple for us to just, love others? But as we've learned, maybe from our conversation, that it's not always easy to just say, love one another and know what that means. And so I think you'll find his insight into a tip or trick on how to love somebody very interesting. So make sure you tune in to let's see, I was going to say season 2, but it is season 2, episode 2.
Thanks for joining me today. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who needs a little inspiration. Your support makes a world of difference. Until next time, keep rewriting and reigniting your story.